big drawing board up there, and then you're trying to figure out, like, you look at a person's profile and figure out, where they can go, what they can do.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll get back to the other 8 questions at the end here, at the end of the session, I guess, in the last little part. But just to jump back to the topic for today, I'll ask the people who are attending live here to answer these 3 questions in the chat. And meanwhile, you and I, Marjorie, can discuss these ones here while we're waiting for the answers to come in. So for the first one, you said that, so I know you guys have a lot of people who come to Canada to work and I guess study as well, and that kind of thing. But then how do people get into trouble, basically, is the question for number one. So what's your experience of this?
Um, Experiences, if they get into trouble when they don't really understand the law, or they it's or they don't understand the papers that they have at hand. One of the things is that it's a common mistake for people to actually think that their visa is a permit and their permit is a visa, and then not understanding what they're for. Another one is when actually someone's already at the point of getting their permanent residency, or while they're working, they get DUI, or driving under the influence, and that's a criminal offense, correct? And then when that happens, I can't do anything about it, because then they'll have to consult with a criminal lawyer for them not to be removed from Canada, or for cases like that, like, I haven't seen anyone that has not been removed actually for drunk driving. What else? So do we go with number 2? How do people get themselves? Yeah, it's just not understanding the situation, or not understanding the documents they have at hand. When you apply for a visa, or when someone has a visa, the visa has a validity, sometimes 1 year, sometimes 2 years, sometimes even 10 years. So in their understanding, somehow, they actually think that what's on their visa is the actual time that they can stay in Canada. Usually the CBSA at the port of entry would inform someone, or a foreign national, that they can only stay up to such a certain period, or if they're not given a permit, then maximum is 6 months. Of course, people are exhausted when they just traveled, like, with, I don't know, maybe through 3 planes somehow. Most of the time, if you're coming from Far East Asia. And then, they don't get this firsthand information from an officer. Either they were not listening, or they're just too tired to even go through that kind of window when they arrive. And so that's where they overstay. I hear some questions or inquiries about, like, they think that they're okay, and then all of a sudden they know that, well, it's been 2 years and you're out of status. So do I prefer working with clients who come to me first, or working with DIY clients who need to fix the problem? It's easier to work with people who actually come to me first, because when they already started doing it their own way, it's a little bit difficult, I would say, to help them fix the problem, because it's hard to change someone's behavior when they're actually used of DIYing it. So I would prefer the first one.
Yeah, that's what everybody says with the 2 other RCICs we had events with. Both
Mm-hmm.
of them mentioned this. That's why I included it in this one as well. Was because they said, "Oh, I hate it when people try to fix it themselves and then they come to me afterwards." And yeah,
Yeah.
I've done the same as well. That's it. So I mean, I'm kind of boring with immigration clients. On my side, I mean, I accept maybe 10, 15, maybe 20 clients per
Mm-hmm.
year. But it's usually kind of boring stuff. I don't really want to, I don't, it sort of scares me a bit to go into really complex cases. So we do maybe spousal sponsorships or express entry if someone exceeds the CRS, or students or something like that, and not these
Mm-hmm.
more kind of complex ones. And I would say all of our clients on the immigration side are overseas. So they're like fresh and they haven't tried to do something themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And for that first one as well, I wanted to get, I mean, I've kind of noticed this as well, that there are people who, I don't think people are really malicious when they get into these types of situations. I think sometimes it is some misinformation, or they get information from, their cousin who immigrated 15 years ago or something like that. And that kind of thing. And we'll talk about the three most common situations a little bit later on today. But
Mm-hmm.
I do see it quite a bit where people sometimes think really short term, and they think, okay, I'll go to Canada as a tourist and I'll find a job there and I'll just stay and it'll work itself out, right? And then
Mm-hmm.
you get to see these people like 5 years later, 10 years later, you mentioned 2 years later, but
Mm-hmm.
they say, hey, I'm kind of scared of being deported. I can't move on with my life. I can't get a mortgage. I can't do this, this, this. I've been
Mm-hmm.
here for 10 years working illegally. Can you fix this? And
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure that's a pretty difficult type of situation for you, of course,
Mm-hmm.
for them as well. So we'll talk about how to kind of resolve those issues a little bit
Mm-hmm.
later on. And the comments in here are, so for number one, Calvin says people get into difficult situations when they get fired from an employer, um, or they're already in trouble. So maybe they overstayed a visa, or they overstayed a permit, or they're working illegally, or something like that. Um, and I think we've answered them all really. So for number two, it's misinformation and that kind of thing. Maybe some bad advice from someone else. So in the chat, someone said maybe bad advice from another consultant. And Marjorie, do you ever have to fix another consultant's work? So maybe somebody goes to a different consultant and they, I don't know, don't do something properly, and then they come to you.
Yeah, yeah, a lot actually. Because the thing with new consultants is, of course, they're also just still learning, but they try and do something and then they make a mistake and they will not admit that they made a mistake. And that's the problem. That's where the problem occurs. I will not have a problem with a consultant coming or referring a client to me because, well, they made a mistake. Like, I don't want to have to throw someone under the bus. But, I managed to be able to fix a problem of several clients without violating our code of professional conduct together with RCICs. It's confusing, those two. They should
Yeah.
change. Um, yes, because, well, the consultants, we do this job for a living, but for me, all I care about is what's best for this application. Not even the person. Like, this application is like you take it as yours, you know. And if that person or the client is not cooperating, then you act as the advocate of the application, not of the person. And same goes with the other consultant who may have given a wrong advice. Um, it's just things happen, and that's why we have CPDs, right? So that our RCICs can learn more, so that they can tackle all these applications that they have properly.
Yep, exactly. Perfect. So the three situations that you and I discussed before as being
Mm-hmm.
the most common situations for foreign nationals who are in Canada already and they're in a stressful situation
Mm-hmm.
is here. So you've got people who simply want to extend their status, which doesn't sound too stressful.
Mm-hmm.
You've got people who want to kind of transfer their status from maybe being a visitor into having a work permit or having a study permit or some sort of combination. Then you've got
Mm-hmm.
number three, and to me, number three sounds the most stressful. I know people who are in the situation as well, and yeah, I think it's incredibly stressful for them.
Mm-hmm.
So, in your opinion, Marjorie, which one of these is the most stressful? Is it number three?
Yes, absolutely. So that's where the applicant or the client actually can call you day and night to bug you if you've submitted the application that the other consultant may have done wrongfully. Um, yeah, this is the most stressful, and it's stressful for the client, but it's more stressful for me because if you take an application as yours, then of course you just wanna like submit it and then go to bed, you know. But the added stress is the applicant also putting stress on you. Like, somehow what gets to me is that when they think that they're actually paying for our services and so they can just call us anytime they want. And that's when you also become a psychologist to them. Hold their hand and say everything's gonna be okay. You just have to trust me, and I've done this before, but please just let me work. Stop calling me in the middle of the night so I can sleep and do your file tomorrow, That's stressful for me, stressful for the person. And these are one of the difficult cases where I try to avoid, but once you get the results, actually it's more rewarding than the stress uh, that it cost.
Yeah, and how do you? I think this is common for a lot of RCICs, and regardless of which area that they work in. How do
Mm-hmm.
you handle that? Do you ask them to send you an email instead, or do you kind of turn your phone off when you're not
Well,
in
first
office hours?
Uh, first, we have several people with several tasks in the company. So we have the processors who are actually the ones in touch with the applicant, and we mostly just work by email. We take phone calls a lot, but it's just easier for you to put everything in black and white so that there's no misunderstanding, there's no miscommunication. And that's what I let our clients understand, is that I would love to talk to them 5 minutes, no problem. It won't even cost a dent in my day, but it's best that we put it in writing, and just they understand that, and they know that we have a time frame as to when's the maximum time that we will answer them. If it's not urgent, then perhaps in the next 24 hours would be sufficient. But they also know that if it's urgent, I'm going to call you. I'm going to bug you. I'm going to get the document that I need because this is urgent. But I mean, if you don't hear from me, everything's okay. You just have to trust me. And that's all that matters. Trust between client and the consultant is very important.
Yeah, exactly. That's it. And for I think part of the um, concern for clients is that it's the first time and probably the only time they're going to do this.
Mm-hmm.
Meanwhile, for you, you've done this 10,000 times, right? So you
Mm-hmm.
know what you're doing. But for people,
Yes.
it's the first time they're doing this, so they're not too sure if they're supposed to call you every day or something like that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Something I've been doing lately. Actually, I'll share this. I just kind of discovered this this week, and I wish somebody told me about it years ago. So
Mm-hmm.